Usually pickup like this would get a plate soldered in here, and that would give you these built-in mounting tabs to mount in a regular Gibson style humbucking pickup ring. But I don't really like that because it lets the pickup wiggle too much, and I think the Fender system for their basses is actually preferable for what we're trying to do here. What I did was I bought some 3/8 diameter nickel, and I milled away some material, and then I put a hole and a counterbore in there to house the screw. And then I was going to solder them right here, and I think I need a fixture so that they don't come out crooked or misaligned in this direction or any other way, actually. I wanted to build a fixture to help me do that, and this is what I came up with. So this has two sliding parts here that are made of heat-resistant plastic, although you can see it's not completely heat-resistant. And anyway, the idea was that we'd push this cover on, and then this pin would locate and control a part so that it worked out. I'll show you on this. Here's the first one I did, and I did this two ways. I did this one was just this straight part that I made on the milling machine, where this surface is parallel to this outside surface anyway, so there's no taper on that. But in fact, the side of this case has a 4.5 or 4 and something degree draft angle. And so when I soldered one on, first of all, it wasn't too easy to get it to touch and solder and look good. I had to play around while it was hot, trying to clamp it in a more complete way than my fixture was able to do. And then when I was all done, I think you can see that let me grab a square. Well, when I was all done, the screw isn't really very square to the part, and that doesn't seem really all right. And it was such a struggle to try and get it to come out this well that I decided I was going to take another cut, 4-degree cut on the part, so that when you put the screw in, it came out nice and square, like this one. Okay, so I'm not going to document the whole series of everything, but it'll give you some sense of what's going on with this, and I'll show you how this last part works anyway. So this is a little bit of a trick because the thing is made already. We've got to figure out somehow how to hold it without crushing it or distorting it too much. And so here I have a way of, indicating the parallelism of the part to the vice jaw, and I just threw it in there, and I'm within. Oh boy, it's pretty good. Well, it's probably good enough, but I'm going to put my finger on it to see if I can feel it move. And see if maybe I made it worse. We'll find out. Sure enough, made it worse. All right, well, it's just over 1 thou. I'm gonna call it fine. All right, so we'll tighten this guy up. And I have just a little block of wood in here that says 4 degrees, but it turns out that it's probably more like 4 1/4, which is just about right for this. So we'll just check with our little angle gauge, find out what we got. 4 1/4, just what the doctor ordered. Okay, so I'm gonna okay, so we can see from the first cut how square we are to the original surface, and it looks pretty darn good. All right, so we'll just keep taking cuts until we see we've taken a pass on this full surface. So I'm just cranking the knee up little by little. Almost done. There we go. So that's the part. So that's the part with the 4 1/2 degree angle on there. So it means that when we put it on a case, it's going to come out, the hole will come out square to the bottom of the pickup pocket, and we'll have true happiness. All right, so I've got all these taken care of now, and got a couple of covers to practice on. These are the pretty ones that we'll end up using on the guitar. So I'm gonna play around with this one and practice and make sure I got my skills together, and show you how that works right now. Okay, so I'm done with this guy. So I have decided to line up this boss with the bottom of the pickup housing like that, okay? And I'm just using this little clamp to help retain it, and I think you'll agree it looks pretty darn nice. Okay, now this is one I've soldered already, so it's a little bit of a mess, but like I said, this is my practice one, so I want to make sure I got my technique down. First, we'll put a little bit of flux, liquid flux in here. This is called Stay Clean Flux, and it's good for low temperature work like we're doing today. So then we kind of print it on the part. Looks like everything got wet. And now I'm going to take a little piece of solder. This is solder that we showed in the soldering riff we had a while ago. This is something that comes from a hardware store. It's lead-free, and it's 98% tin, 2% silver, and the silver gives it a huge amount of strength. They show it here fixing your eyeglasses, which, oh, I don't know, maybe. And what I've done with this, I'll just show you how this works. What is this? Okay, this is 1/16 thick. It has a core of flux, so there's a little bit of flux right down the middle of it, which we're going to see in a moment. Let me get in here. So we'll put about an inch of this thing in there, and then we're just going to crush it. I'll use a bigger lever and really put some pressure on this vise. Okay. So that's what we get. Just a nice flat piece of solder, which I think you can see in the center. There's a little bit of, you can see there's a little line in the center. That's the flux. Oh, let's see how thick we got it. 9 thousandths or 0.23 millimeters. So that's nice and thin. And then we can cut this up to whatever size we feel is the right size to stick in the joint. Now, this is a nice way to do this because you're not trying to do something like they're showing you here in this photo, which is, my experience is that that's kind of probably pretty disastrous to try and do a good job by just pushing the solder in as if you were soldering the pot on a pickup. It's probably not a good idea to try and do it that way. So I'm not sure exactly how much solder we're going to need, but let's try this piece. So again, this is 9 thousandths by, oh, I don't know. Well, it's about 3.5 millimeters wide, so a little over 1/8 of an inch, and then for length, maybe almost 7 millimeters. We can put some flux on this. And oh, a little too much flux. It's skating all over the place. Well, what I'm trying to do is get this in the middle of the joint. Excuse me while I fumble with this. But I promise you this is worth doing. You'll see in a moment that this is pretty good system. All right. So we got the flux about in the middle, and the parts lined up with the pickup the way I wanted it. Pickup housing, I mean. and put my little clamp on there. Okay, it's ready to solder. I'm going to pick out a torch. I have an acetylene torch, old-fashioned plumber's torch that is, with a bottle with an unmixed acetylene flame. And that's okay, but I don't have a small tip for it. I've got this guy, which is a self-lighting plumber's torch, which you may have seen me use before. I'm running MAP gas, which is a hot rod propane that burns really hot, 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what I've used so far on this project, and I think it's overkill. So I just went up to the kitchen and got the creme brulee torch, or whatever that is, which I think might be more appropriate. Now let's just check to see what they say here about, yeah, here punto diffusion is 450F, which ain't much. So yeah, that's the melting point of this stuff. So let's see if we can't take care of it with this, and it might be a little bit calmer. And what we're trying to do, of course, is this thing is really thin, the cover. I didn't measure it, I guess. 0.34 millimeters, or about 13 thousandths thick. That's going to heat up in half a second, but this big blob of nickel that we're trying to stick on there obviously is a different story, so we're going to direct all the heat at that. See how we do. Trying not to set fire to the fixture the way I almost did the first time. A little more flux in there. Now that we have everything clamped, there's the flux bubbling up. So we know around 2 something Fahrenheit. And we're going to want to wait and see some solder flow. Well, this is a whole lot less heat than I was using before, but I'm still managed to set fire to my fixture. A little hard for me to see what's going on here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, a little hard to see, but nice if you can wipe out some of this while it's still hot. Okay. Huh. Well, I'm not sure I got that. It doesn't look like it's all the way melted. It's not. All right. Well, this is a test. We'll try the big guy. Nobody said this was easy. I don't know. It's a little hard for me to see it. I'd like to see some solder squeezing out, which I'm not seeing. I'm going to heat it up again. Well, I see melted solder, but I don't see the part being clamped the way I want it. It seems to still be kind of floating on a pad of solder where the solder should be almost zero thickness, and it doesn't look like anything like zero to me. Now, maybe that I just tried too many times and I can't get it clean, even though I'm still putting flux in there. One more shot. There we go. There it is. All right, so yeah, creme brulee, not so much. All right, so now we have solder. I think you can see it all the way up the part on that side, and on this side. Yeah, it actually is. It doesn't look uniform, but I can see it actually at the top of the part as well. Look at the top. And there's just a little bit of solder mess on the top, which I was hoping to avoid, but hey, it's in the right place. It's only a guitar pickup, right? All right, well, that's pretty good. We'll clean up and we'll be fine. Well, I'm going to solder another couple of these and just try and get my technique together so that when I go for the pretty parts, they come out pretty. That's today's hallucination. Kind of a lot of fun. Seems like an awful lot of work, but I think when it's all done, it's going to look cool. All right, guys. Ciao.